ready to hear some noise tonight. You're just seconds away from Let's Go Blues Radio.
No doubt about it, eh? You're listening to Kurt, Bill, and Jeff on Let's Go Blues Radio, the original St. Louis Blues hockey fan podcast. Take it away, boys.
Come on, St. Louis hockey fans, stand up and cheer. The Blues are back strong. This is our year. It's the Blues' turn now.
I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Yeah, it's the Blues' turn now. With that Al McKinnon slap shot, you know we can't lose. We are St. Louis, the home of the Blues. Come on, St. Louis. Come on, St. Louis. Come on, St. Louis.
Let's do that hockey.
Come on, St. Louis. All over the hockey universe, the note is the news. Everybody's digging on the St. Louis.
Well, welcome to Season 7, Episode 15 of Let's Go Blues Radio. It is 9:25, and we're live on Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018. This is franchise episode number 148 all time. My name is Kurt Price. My Twitter handle is @KurtPrice. Bill Day's Twitter handle is @BillyBlueNote, and Jeff Ponder's Twitter handle is @JPonder94. If you want to send the show a tweet, send it to @LGB Radio, and we'll try and read that live on the air. If you want to talk hockey with us live on the show, we'll open it up for listeners later on if we do have time. So hopefully we do have some time for that. Please check out the letsgoblues.com shop and consider buying a reasonably priced t-shirt, mug, or sticker. All proceeds go back into the show that you love so much. Gentlemen, how are you this evening?
Well,
Good? Yes?
Hockey's back.
It kind of is. Jeff, you are once again holding the Stanley Ponder Cup Memorial Tournament, correct?
Yes, and for those of you watching, before we get into that, I do want to point out there's a reason I'm wearing my helmet tonight. In case Tom Wilson comes flying through my room, I want to make sure that I'm very well protected. Yes, that's right, folks. I am wearing a helmet. So it's not a real helmet. It's a poutine helmet. Did you see these at the game, Kurt?
No, I didn't see him.
So if you get poutine, I think it's buffalo chicken poutine, they serve it to you in a Blues like plastic helmet. And I was very excited when I got this. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna wear this. I put it on. My wife said, absolutely not. And then I looked in the mirror in the bathroom and looked like Hockey Bob. So I said, no way. You are going off.
It's got a little more protection than Gretzky's broom ball helmet from his era.
The Yofa.
The Yofa. Yeah.
It's probably about the same material, I think.
Those helmets were outlawed, weren't they? They weren't allowed. I mean, it was grandfathered in,
Right.
but the other players, new players, couldn't wear them.
Right. The only time you see him now is alumni games.
Right. Yeah. Charlie Huddy and Wayne Gretzky, and that's about it.
Kelly Chase wore one.
He did
during the Winter Classic.
He
alumni game.
he did wear one. So Jeff, the Stanley Ponder Cup tournament.
Yeah, that's a tournament that's happening. So check that out.
All right. Next, the official.
Yeah, the Stanley Ponder Cup Memorial Tournament. It's going to be on Saturday, November 17th from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Bar will stay open until 1 a.m. It's out at Queenie Park, Midwest Sport Hockey. It's an inline hockey tournament, for those that were wondering. It benefits Be the Match Foundation and Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Something if you listen to the summer interview series, you probably got annoyed with how much I talked about it. But as of right now, signups are still open. All you have to do is go to dropinstl.com and then the 2018 SPMCT Tourney tab. Scroll down to the bottom there. There's a donate button. That is how you sign up. Just click the donate and you are good to go. So I do want to say that we are also still looking for people to donate for the raffle. So if your business or you personally have anything you'd like to put in for the raffle, it all goes to a great cause. So I'd love to hear from you if you would like to be involved. email me at jponder94@gmail.com. And if some of you want to come out and play, we'd love to have you. If you want to come out and watch some bad hockey and bid on some raffles, we'd love to have you for that too.
Spoon Fudge on the YouTube chat says McSorley wore one, which that's I believe that's correct. And then he also asked, "What about the Ponder jockstrap? Where's that?"
Oh, I mean, this is a family show? I can't show it, right?
This has never been a family show.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm also all I'm wearing is the jock strap, so I'm kind of Donald Ducking it today. So look out.
And Deanna says, "Forget the helmet. I need to hear more about the poutine." So, how was the poutine?
Is it Bird and Barrel? Is that the vendor?
I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember who it was, but Americans, and I guess Americans mostly in the Midwest, we really just do not get poutine right. It's okay. I mean, it was edible, and I enjoyed
it's like
it.
a horseshoe, isn't it? I mean, it's no, it's
No,
not. I thought it was like a horseshoe.
No, it's French fries, gravy, cheese curds, and meat.
It's very close to a horseshoe.
But for some reason in the Midwest, we have hot sauce. It's always hot sauce or barbecue sauce, and it's a weird mix, and I don't like it. I guess it's like the Midwest version of poutine, but if you're gonna call it poutine, it should damn well be poutine.
Yeah. So last year when I was at the two games that I went to, I had Bird and Barrel poutine. They have a fried chicken one that had no hot sauce in it. It was fried chicken, gravy, cheese curds, French fries. It was very good. I liked it. I mean, not as good as what I had in Montreal, obviously.
Of course
but
not.
Sounds
very snobby.
It does. It does. But my favorite place in St. Louis to get poutine is Schlafly Tap Room. Very good. Very good poutine on the starters menu there.
I have never had poutine.
Yeah. You're missing out.
Is phenomenal.
I've had a horseshoe. I've had a number of horseshoes. I've been close. Yeah. So the only difference between a horseshoe and a poutine is bread.
And I don't know that I've ever had a horseshoe.
Really?
Yeah.
They have Sergeant Pepper's in town. Has them.
Yeah, I've never been to Sergeant Pepper's.
Oh well, that's pretty good. I mean, it's diner food.
And listen to you sounding all Southern Illinois in town.
In town. Is that like a dialect? Is that a thing? Well, in town? Well, I mean, how else do you describe something that's in your city?
From the farmland.
Well, how else do you tell someone that something is in your vicinity, in your town, in your city? Would you say, I don't know,
in Edwardsville proper?
Wow, but okay, well, yeah, I'm in Troy. Yes, that's true. I'm in Troy, so I wouldn't say in town. Okay, whatever.
It's just You showed your Smithton roots there, I think.
My Smithton roots. Smithton shout out. I love Smithton.
I can honestly say, Kurt, I have never even heard of a horseshoe. I mean, I know what a horseshoe is, but not the food.
It's I can
open face sandwich.
Apparently. It's got meat. There's bread, right? And then there's meat.
Mm-hmm.
Like a chicken or a burger or like a ground beef, it's a patty. And then there's fries. And a shit ton of cheese, like melted cheese on top, which is very close to for poutine, I guess. But I've never had a poutine, so and Bill's never had a horseshoe, so we need to have.
Please stop calling it a poutine.
Yes, it is just poutine.
Don't call it a poutine. No way.
I had a poutine. Okay, never had poutine.
Stop it.
What's plural? What's plural? What's plural for poutine?
Poutine is plural.
Poutines. Poutines.
Poutines.
Poutines. Owns. Who own the Chiefs? The official beers of episode 148. It sounds like we've had a number already.
Yes, it does.
So Bill, what do you tweeted it out? What do you
I did. I am what's the ABV in this bad boy? 13%.
Holy snipes.
And I am already through a good portion of it. It's Four Hands Imperial Stout aged in Buffalo Trace bourbon barrels. It was a limited release for Four Hands last spring. Got it at Randall's in Fairview, and yeah, it's a beauty.
She's a beauty.
She's a beauty.
Cool. Ponder.
Well, first of all, there are some great conversations going on here in the YouTube chat. First of all, I love the comment. I guess because you haven't had poutine, or maybe you're pronouncing it a poutine. Somebody
I love
Spoon Fudge says that's why Kurt is single. So
There's a number of reasons why I'm single.
And then John Woodson says, I would like a single poutine, please.
Horseshoe does not have cheese curds. Is that a response to a conversation in the chat? We didn't say that cheese curds, right?
No, cheese curds. Poutine is cheese curds.
Okay. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, because I know Horseshoes have the melted cheese.
How can you run a hockey show and not have poutine?
I had never heard of poutine until Bill went to Montreal. I had never. I don't know.
Right.
It's not a Midwest thing.
It is
poutine.
no. It's primarily a Canadian thing.
So there you go.
A French Canadian thing.
So I don't want to hear it.
But you want to eat it.
It
is good.
And the Canadians have probably never had toast ravioli and Ted Drew's and St. Louis style pizza.
You're literally just naming St. Louis food.
Right. Well, that's why
You're not
I'm
even
saying
naming Midwest food.
I'm from the area. I don't know anything outside I don't know what's specific to Kansas City.
But you know what's in town.
I know it's in town. Now I'm going to be self-conscious about in town comments. Thank you.
I've never heard that before either, Kurt, so I'm with you on that.
All right. So we could have had a whole segment. We did a whole segment on poutine. So
that's our show, everybody. Thanks for listening.
So your beer, Jeff?
My beer of the episode is the O'Fallon Pumpkin Beer. So I had Oktoberfest from Schlafly last week, and this week I'm going to the pumpkin beer. Pretty much primarily what I drink in October is Oktoberfest and pumpkin beer. So one of the best ones. Again, I know I say that a lot. That I always say Schlafly has the best Oktoberfest. I think O'Fallon has the best pumpkin beer. So if you're looking to try something you've never had before, give these a shot.
Spoon Fudge. I'm gonna give a little hell yes to Spoon Fudge. The YouTube chat. He said Ted Drew's. Oh, he said Bobby's is better than Ted Drew's. Ted Drew's is overrated. I love Ted Drew's. Don't get me wrong, but Bobby's is right down the road. So
in town.
In town. Bobby's is in town. So
yep. That's our go-to place
yeah.
here in Madison County, right?
Bobby's is fantastic.
Yes.
And Deanna seconds the you're not wrong about Bobby's. It's really good. John Woodson says UCBC Urban Chestnut is the best Oktoberfest.
That's a good one too. Yeah, that's a good one to definitely try if you haven't had it before.
My beer this evening is Bill and I both went old beers and both from Four Hands. So mine's the peanut butter chocolate milk stout from Four Hands, which is last year's release, 2017, I guess. I've had this on the show a number of times, and it's one of my favorites. So, and I assume it's out soon, if not now. So I figured I'd just tear into it, and I'll replace it soon with a one from this year. So,
a current vintage,
yes, because it ages well. This peanut butter chocolate milk stout from 2017. Wait. Yes, that smells good. So, and apparently, if you're pregnant, you should not drink this. According to the bottle.
According to the Surgeon General.
So anyway, that's good. If you like stouts, the peanut butter chocolate milk stout, I believe, is a popular beer in St. Louis. So from Four Hands. Check it out.
Maybe I will.
To Today in Blues history.
Hang on.
I know I got your message.
You don't read my chats.
I saw it, but I was getting ready to start it. What am I going to do? Just sit here and I'll just ramble on about. I'll ramble on about peanut butter camp.
Yeah, you gotta vamp like Letterman.
What does vamp mean?
Oh my lord!
For a pause. You're a podcast host.
Oh, okay. So hey, if anybody has not had these cinnamon yogurt covered pretzels from Fresh Time,
we're giving free advertising tonight to Fresh Time.
Fresh Time, cinnamon yogurt covered pretzels. They are really, really good. Bill brought them over the other night for a small gathering I had at my abode.
Yes.
And they're very good.
The annual Bone Tomahawk Watch Party.
The Bone Tomahawk Watch Party.
Okay, you don't have to vamp when I'm actually ready to talk.
Right.
You also have to let us know when you're ready to talk.
Right, I don't know.
Okay. Well, shit. I'm doing it wrong, guys. I just wanted to point out, friends of the show, St. Louis Game Time. For any of you going down to the game tomorrow night, or if you're going down to the rally, 5 o'clock, they start selling the St. Louis Game Time outside of Enterprise Center. So if you have never picked up a Game Time, head out there and get one, because those guys do great work. They put a lot of work into what they do. And yeah, I felt that as the season draws closer, we should give them a little plug, because they're one of the best things to read on game days.
Ray asks if Bobby's has poutines. They do not.
They don't have singular poutine.
No, they have pies. I think they have like a turtle. They're known for their turtle custard, I think.
Yes.
So
Turtle concrete.
And Spoonfudge wants to know why Jeff wasn't invited to my my party. That's because I live on one side of the river and Jeff lives on the other.
And we all know we can't mingle.
Right. And folks from the west side in Missouri feel that anything across the river is 50 miles away. So no one ventures over here too often, even though it's like literally you could hit a golf ball across. You couldn't.
I don't like forging the river.
You couldn't do it. No, I couldn't do it. No.
Yeah. They used to have that at the VP Fair back in the day. That they would put a green on a barge out in the middle of the river.
Really?
Yeah. And yeah. But that was back in the day.
Back in the day.
Today in St. Louis history.
Today in the St. Louis Blues history, courtesy of the @STL Blues History Twitter account. Give them a follow. October 3rd, 2018 is today. So 1931, October 3rd. Happy 87th birthday to former St. Louis Blues goalie Glenn Hall, born October 3rd, of course. 1931 in Humboldt, Saskatchewan. I didn't know he was from Humboldt.
Yeah.
That's Glenn Hall is the oldest living St. Louis Blues player. For those that didn't know that. And don't tell me you did, because you didn't.
Unless you
followed the St. Louis Blues History Twitter account.
Exactly.
If you did, you'd know this.
Right. There's a movie coming out. Mr. Goalie, the movie.
Is it really?
Chronicles his life. Yes.
Really? Mr. Goalie. 1973. Today's date, 1973. Bobby Plager, who is at Barco Bill, at Bark Bob Bill on Twitter, of the St. Louis Blues, received a suspension from the NHL for an altercation with an official and became engaged on the same day. So Clarence Campbell said the suspension was for physically interfering with the game officials in carrying out their duty and threatening physical violence to the referees. Which, and it was during a preseason game too, which kind of like almost is like a segue into what we're going to talk today. Preseason stupidity.
Well, and this also plays into what we're going to talk about a little later, because if Bob Plager could do that in 1973, that means he can do it now, right? Like if players wanted to abuse the officials, that's okay, right?
Yeah, because what you do 30, 40 years ago, is fine today. I mean, that's just hockey.
The rules have not changed.
No, science is not advanced. They don't know. I mean, we don't get smarter about things.
99% of the people listening to this right now are going, what the hell are they talking about? Yeah. We will get to this in a minute.
And involves a former Blues player, which will be fun.
Who had some outlandish comments about the next story we're going to discuss.
Yeah, so this will be fun.
Former Blues player and fellow podcaster.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Who I'm gonna venture to say that he just calls into the show or is in the studio sometimes. It must be nice just to walk into the studio and sit down and just start talking.
It is. Let me tell you, it is.
Because I assume that's what he does. So
are you saying that Bill Day is this show's Darren Kimball?
Ooh. Start calling, yeah. Bill, you see, why are you dragging your knuckles across the table, Bill? I don't
it felt like the right thing to do.
Okay.
That moment. I'm sorry.
I do not condone that whatsoever. That is ridiculous. I am shocked and appalled.
This 13% is hitting me pretty hard, pretty quick.
Okay, good. Well, then this should be a good conversation.
This is going to be a great conversation.
Breaking news today. Tom Wilson suspended 20 games for the hit on Oscar Sundqvist, and he will lose Thanks, Jeff. He will lose over $1 million in salary.
Wait a minute, I muted myself. You heard that?
Oh yeah, you did mute. No, you did not. There was no muting going on there.
Oh, I'm sorry, everyone. Kurt, edit that out right now.
Yeah, it's on the fly editing. We're on a 10-second delay. I'll just hold on. Yeah, so, Tom Wilson suspended 20 games for the hit on Sundqvist. He'll lose $1 million in salary. The NHL Department of Player Safety, a source from the NHL Department of Player Safety, and I forgetting the never mind. He tweeted out. No. Anyway, a source from the NHL Department of Player Safety said there's no formula for someone that's been suspended this often. We've never had a player in the modern era that's been suspended this much, this frequently. 16 games ago, he hit another guy in the head too. So, and 4 suspensions. He's received 4 suspensions in the last 13 months. Sundqvist is day-to-day with concussion and shoulder issues from the hit. There on social media has been entertaining to say the least. Lots of victim blaming going on and claims of it being a clean hit.
Okay, wait. Before we get into that, when we talk about the hit.
Yes. Okay.
So, what were your guys' thoughts?
Okay. Well, I'll break it down real quick. Sundqvist reaches the pass, goes across the blue line, cuts to the middle, which any hockey player knows you take your risks when you cut across the middle. And he cut across the middle. It was real high slot, just inside the blue line, and he let a shot go. And Wilson's coming from the other side of the direction, from his right, and blindsides him with a hit. Head was principal point of contact, shoulder to head, and and Lundqvist didn't, or Sundqvist didn't think. I didn't think he saw it coming. He may have seen it the last second. I don't know, but yeah. So I thought that he would. I thought when I saw it, I'm like, oh, that's a suspension, easy. And I tweeted out something about over under being 8 games on the hit. And I was trying to, and I was like, I think that's a fair number for over and under, just based on how the league usually goes with suspensions, whether it's always like, well, a little less than what you think should be. But they got 20 games, so I'm happy with the 20 games because I thought it was going to be like 10 or 12. So I thought that was fair. Now, not based on other suspensions and things that have happened in the past, and based on his suspension history, I'm thinking, well, gosh, maybe 30 games is more appropriate because of his history. But 20 games, I'm more than satisfied with because of again how the NHL usually does things and his past history. So,
yeah, just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it is clearly the kind of hit that the NHL has been trying to legislate out of the game. And Wilson's not getting the message. They got to send a strong message. A couple of things that I read today related to Tom Wilson. Do you know how many goals he has in his NHL career?
Isn't it not as many as suspended games? Or
it's slightly more.
6 more?
35. Yes, he has 35 goals, 29 games of suspension in his career.
Yeah.
That's got to be, well, I don't know. Some goons never scored a goal. So
can you say he's a goon if he plays on the top line? Can you say that?
He's not a goon, but he's certainly a dirty player.
Yeah.
I've already forgotten what the other point. The fact that it's a preseason game and he just gave up $1.2 million in salary for a hit on a 4th line player in a preseason game, a non-conference 4th line player,
a fringe 4th line player. Right. I didn't have him on the team.
No, I didn't.
He was press box at best.
Right. He it was the game that the Blues had called up 25 people to avoid somebody getting hurt in the game, and somebody got hurt in the game.
Well, and somebody I think just mentioned this in the YouTube chat that Aaron Knox says, okay, so this fucker has gotten suspended 4 times in the last year, and none happened in the regular season, and 3 came against the Blues.
Yeah, preseason, all of them preseason.
One was on Thomas too, which pissed me off. I mean, that sounds bad. I pissed me off more than Sundqvist because, but it is what it is.
You got to prioritize your players, right?
Right.
No, I mean it's ludicrous because he's an NHL player. I mean, he just signed that huge contract extension over the summer. And, I mean, he's on the roster. And now, listen, we've talked about this before on this show. I know we have. That when you're in the game, even if it's a preseason game, tempers flare. You get energized, you get into the game. It's easy to just kind of forget that it's a preseason game sometimes, for some players especially. So I'm not saying that Tom Wilson should be lackadaisically skating in those games, but at some point when he's getting ready to make that hit, he's got to think, this game doesn't mean shit. I do not need to be laying some AHL talent out in a game that means nothing against a division, something that's not even a division rival or a conference rival. It makes no sense. I just don't understand his logic. I mean, again, I don't think that you should just, skate through the motions in preseason, but man, you got to think at some point when you're coming in to make a hit on someone, you got to think some of these guys are just like, you know what? I'm a veteran. This guy's trying to make a team. I'm just going to, I'm going to lay off a little bit. Yeah, I'll still bump him, but I'm not going to knock him into next week. Tom Wilson doesn't seem to have that part of his brain working properly.
Tom Wilson's a stupid hockey player. Anybody who is going to sacrifice $1.2 million in salary for a hit in a preseason game, come on. He knows his own history. He knows he's susceptible to stupidity. You're in a game that doesn't mean anything. Like you said, Jeff, it means zip. And now he's lost $1.2 million in salary, and he misses 20 games because of a hit he dished out in a preseason game that meant nothing. He wasn't even sending a message to a division rival, his other conference. It's just a stupid thing to do.
By the way, real quick, you mentioned the $1.2 million coming off the books. Did you see the thing about how he doesn't get a paycheck the rest of the year?
I heard his contract was structured so it was a suspension proof. I didn't go into details looking why, but
I saw. I don't know if it's true, but what I saw is that his base salary is about $1 million, but he got a $4 million signing bonus. So he gets that signing bonus up front, and then so that means that he's already gotten his only paycheck for the year if he's losing $1.2 million.
Hope he didn't buy a flying car.
So that's what they meant by suspension proof. Yeah. Like he's not going to get hurt by. Well, he still lost $1 million over a preseason game. I saw like Iverson. We're talking about practice. Practice. Jesus, and he's a stupid hockey player. It's just dumb.
So the last player the NHL legislated out of the league was Rafi Torres, and Tom Wilson is now, I think, the NHL's target to be legislated out of the league, and I don't have a problem with it.
So on, and I don't either. I don't. And it's telling too, because the vast majority of social media has been on board with the suspension. And Jeff, we texted earlier about how even a lot of Washington Capitals fans are like, "Yep, okay, good. That sounds about right." Well, he deserved it.
Yeah, for those that follow me on Twitter, you may have retweeted it on the Let's Go Blues Radio account. I don't know, but I cannot say her name, so I'm not going to try. One of the Capitals beat writers tweeted out that here's the suspension for Tom Wilson, and I retweeted it with a quote that said, "Hey, read the comments, everybody." The comments from Caps fans were, "Yeah, it's about right." I mean, it was completely in agreement. Now, of course, you're going to get some people saying, "What the hell? That's steroid level for suspensions," and that's what. Okay, you're going to get people like that in every fan base. It's fine, but the majority of responses to that were, "Yeah, that's probably fair."
And of course, then there were these sprinkled in comments that were rather ignorant about, I saw a handful. Oh, it was mostly body to body. It got mostly shoulder. And I'm like, yeah, I get being a homer and looking through certain color glasses when you see a play, but come on. And of course, the Darren Kimball, former Blues enforcer, was pretty adamant about it being a clean hits and he was victim blaming Sundquist, saying that he needed to keep his head up. And I want to say this up front. I touched on earlier about how especially when players cross the middle with the puck, you do need to keep your head up. That's a thing. I mean, you can't play with your head down. You'll get blown up. But in this situation, to pretty much pass off Wilson's hit as being clean, and then to on the same breath blame Sundquist for keeping his head down. It's like, I mean, it's almost like Kimball was a Washington Capitals, blogger or something.
Right.
So I don't get it. That doesn't make any. I mean, I okay. Yes, you've played in the NHL. I mean, you made it to the NHL and you had a nice little career for an enforcer. You're wrong here. I am sorry.
That was 30 years ago,
and it's a different era.
Right.
We had this conversation, different era, last episode.
Well, I mean, a lot of time, I've always said, especially when it comes to goaltending, you cannot compare eras. The 80s and early 90s, you can't compare it to where it is now. The defensive game is so much different. But that was also the heyday of the enforcer. And, you went to games, the old joke was, I went to the fights and the hockey game broke out. It was expected that you were going to see brawls between enforcers every night. That's not the NHL anymore. The game is passed and by. The concern for concussions, even though I still don't think the NHL as an organization takes it seriously enough and is trying to downplay it for their legal risk, it's a different era. People are worried about brain injury, and it's sad that we have people holding on to the past so much, saying, like the Blues NHL podcast official account tonight tweeted out a picture of people in, the bubble suits bumping into each other during an intermission, saying maybe we should have the players wear these today. Right?
Jesus Christ.
It's disgusting.
And that's the thing too, is that, the guys that, like, for example, for Kimball, who played in the 80s, I couldn't agree with you more, Bill. It is a different era. The game is played differently. We know so much more about head injuries. Back in the day, I remember vividly having discussions with people and hearing discussions on TV about whether a hit was clean or not, and the only concern was the elbow down. You could hit somebody square in the head with your shoulder, didn't matter, because as long as your elbow was down, it's a clean hit because elbow's down. And that wasn't that long ago. That was in the 90s, late 90s probably. So 2000s.
Right, up until probably 2013.
Steve,
I think a watershed moment in the concussion thing was Mark Savard. He was such a great talent, and when his career got derailed, from basically his hit was very similar to the one that Oscar Sundquist had. Right, the beer
it's a 13% alcohol.
It is. I almost called him Lundquist, but
I did that earlier.
Right, but yeah, it's. I think we crossed that line somewhere in the last 5 years, but the game has changed now, and that's the point. It is a new era. The rules back when Kimby played don't apply anymore. It's just,
it's like a different sport,
right?
Almost, it really is.
The thing that I want to ask Kimball, I would love to ask, and Jim Gromer's invited me on a show, so maybe I need to go on there and actually ask him this. What bothers me about this mostly is he says that kind of hit belongs in the game. That he knows people who have suffered from these kinds of hits. He brought up Eric Lindros on his Twitter feed about how Lindros would still make that hit today. Pretty sure Eric Lindros just talked about how he plays in men's leagues now and they don't hit, and it's awesome. Not to mention the Wade Belaks, the Bob Proberts, the guys who battled alongside him and had brain trauma. And I just don't understand. I mean, I get that was your game. I understand that. But I mean, look at the damage it has caused players from that era. And I mean, I'm not saying, I mean, maybe Mr. Kimball is just one of the lucky ones and never had any problems, but you got to think at some point down the road, it hit him. And it was just, oh man, I just can't, I can't get out of bed today. I can't, it's hard to even lift my fork. I mean, hockey players all the time talk about that kind of stuff happening to them. And it's shocking to me to hear a former player still in defense of that kind of thing when he knows people who are suffering from stuff like that.
What triggered me a little bit when probably his tweet today that triggered me the most was and he's been vocal about this because he's not a big Twitter user. He says stuff every once in a while, but he's been vocal about this. But he tweeted today at about 4:30. He said he tweeted a picture of Tom Wilson just sitting on the bench smiling, and he said, "When they raised the banner tonight, remember the way you played helped your team win it." So he's basically saying, "Don't change a damn thing because your team needs you to play the way you do because you won a cup," and that. Basically, he's endorsing he's endorsing Tom Wilson's hit as well, part of the game. It's a part of the game that needs to stay. And I'm like, I don't get that whatsoever. That's almost like he's just poking a bear. He's trolling for shit or something. I don't know. Maybe he is, but maybe he's laughing at home. But he comes off like an ass with that tweet.
Yeah, I agree. That was definitely lowbrow from him. I mean, I know that he's, like you said, he doesn't tweet a lot, and when he does, it's usually something kind of poking the bear. But yeah, that was to me a little over the line too. And I didn't like his tweet, so I did tweet him about it and kind of shared my thoughts on it. And then he responded, and well, he didn't respond. He retweeted me, which is so easy to follow a conversation when people do that. By the way,
the reply is for replying. The retweet is to take a comment or something and to put your own spin on it and to show it to your listeners. If you're in a conversation, use the goddamn retweet button, not the use the reply button, not the retweet. Oh, it's so hard to follow a conversation when you do that.
Yeah, but anyway, so he responds to me with some bullshit, which I'm not even gonna get into because I'm just still again shocked that a man of his caliber would feel this way about it. And Jeff Jones kind of responded and said, hey, Sundqvist, yeah, you got to keep your head up in hockey, but you got to, his head was down because he was looking towards the net where he was putting the puck and he was going across the ice. And, it's not like he was, admiring his pass, as they might say, and they just kind of explained why Sundqvist isn't to blame. And then Kimball started goading him about, oh, yeah, so when did you do this, or when were you involved in this? Clearly saying, when was the last time you played in the NHL? And listen, we've talked on this show, and I hate saying it because it does make us seem like pompous asses, but there is a lot of the game that you have to play to, you really do have to play to understand. And I agree with Mr. Kimball on that side of it. But the thing that I don't agree with is somebody who's basically quoting the rule book and follows the game. And yes, Jeff Jones has also played hockey, and then myself included have played hockey. So we get it to a certain extent, maybe not to your level, Darren, but I mean, to completely dismiss somebody who knows the rule book and knows, hey, that was illegal because of XYZ, which is exactly what they said in the NHL player safety video, to dismiss that and say, oh, well, you didn't play in the NHL, so you don't know. I'm sorry. Darren, fuck you. That's not cool, man.
Yikes.
Wow. And you're going on the show.
Yeah. Hey, I'll talk to him about it. That's fine.
All right. I'll tune in for that one.
It's just.
I will that.
Do you know what gets brought up a lot? What has been talked about a lot is Scott Stevens. This whole when Scott Stevens heyday, he dished those kinds of hits out all the time, and he's a Hall of Famer. Like, yeah, back when those kinds of hits were legal, and you didn't get suspended for hitting behind the head because your elbow was down. If your elbow was up, suspension. or fine, both fine suspension. If your elbow's down, shoulder, that's the way it works. But it's a little worse nowadays too, because the equipment is it's like armor.
Right.
So I mean, when you do catch somebody in the head with an elbow or a shoulder, you're hitting them with basically a tank. So
Right.
and it just compounds things to make things that much worse.
Right.
So.
There were two defensemen of the 90s who were just notorious and timed their hits very well. Stevens was the best by far. If you two hits right off the top of your head, the Lindros hit,
The Korea hit.
and the Korea hit.
Yep.
And it's easy to forget the Korea hit and the impact that it had, because Korea came back and scored the game-winning goal. One of the best moments in Stanley
When
Cup
he
history.
should not have been on the ice.
Right.
There's
Concussion protocol today would have kept him on.
Oh, yeah.
Off the ice. I'm sorry, it was a great goal, but I'd rather him have not gotten back into that game.
Oh, sure.
And he stayed away from the game because of
Right.
a lot of these issues. But Darian Hatcher's the other guy, but his were more elbows. And I remember the first time I ever heard people talking about the composition of an elbow pad was because Darian Hatcher had concussed somebody. I don't know if it was Scott Young, somebody on the Blues, with just a crease clearing, throwing an elbow, and they said it's just getting much more dangerous when you moved away from the soft shell elbow pads of the 80s into these plastic capped elbow pads of the 90s, and now they're even I don't know, what are they, Kevlar?
You don't need, here's the thing, you don't need that.
Right.
I mean, even in a high speed NHL game, if everyone's wearing the soft equipment, you don't need the armor on your elbows and your shoulders. You don't need that. Okay, put some armor on your chest,
right,
to prevent from protect from the Pronger Red Wings playoff incident where a shot hits him in the chest and his heart stops. Give him some, that's fine.
That or the clavicle breaks.
Right.
Right.
Yes, but the elbows and the shoulders. That's kind of makes things a whole lot worse. And I don't know. I mean, they're doing all this stuff to try and slowly trim down goalie equipment. It seems like they're doing it like millimeter by millimeter,
right,
every season or something,
right.
But it's like, come on, just do it already.
Right. But what about player equipment? I mean, so I'll date myself here, and that's fine. But I remember I was in grade school, and like I was a not a hockey card guy at the time, but a sticker collector. Jeff, I believe you worked for the company Panini.
Oh yeah, good old Panini.
Yeah, so I had the Panini sticker books when I was in grade school in the 80s, and the 87-88 Philadelphia Flyers. Like, if you look at their roster, everybody on that team they were the first ones that in the NHL that wore Jonesy's shoulder pads, and those were the ones that were plastic capped. Those are the first ones. It made you look bigger. I mean, your jersey was an inch and a half higher than everybody else's, and it was intimidating. But it also probably was the start of this fad of having these plastic caps on your equipment. And is that necessary? How much protection? I mean, it makes you feel safer, but what does that provide? And is it more dangerous to the opponent?
Yeah, I would say it is way more dangerous to the opponent than it is protecting you. And if they're going across the board, give everyone the soft equipment, then I think I don't think there's a problem. Right. I think if you've got some guys, I don't even know if it would affect that even. I think if it would just force players to go back to that soft equipment, it would solve some of the issues. Spoon Fudge says you guys are not taking this was a few minutes ago. You're not taking into account the size of the shoulder pads back then and now. Now we have.
Well, so Brendan Shanahan throughout his entire
wore the
NHL,
same pads,
the same Cooper shoulder pads from 1986 that he got when he was in juniors. Wore them through his entire career,
and he threw his weight around.
He threw his weight around, and when you look at him, you can tell he's not wearing oversized shoulder pads. He was an effective NHL player.
Who threw his weight
Who
around?
threw his weight around and didn't suffer from concussion.
He played in front of the net. He played in the corners. He was a power forward.
Yeah.
And he did not have a problem. Yeah. Let's see. Spoon Fudge says, I know him. I guess.
Wait. Let me take this one.
All right.
So I'm echoing, by the way.
You're echoing? I'll fix it. Hold on. Maybe I'll fix it.
Let's hope.
How's that?
Better. Thank you. Yeah, I was
Okay.
gonna say I wanted to take this one because I wanted to say this is my 4th beer of the night, so I'm going to walk myself back a little bit because that's not who I am. I am not going to say "F you, Darren Kimball." I am going to say I would love to have a debate with you. If anyone shares this with him or if he's listening, that was over the line, and I apologize. So he's a big man. I don't want to mess with him.
He's bigger now than he was when we stopped playing.
I don't want to mess with that guy. But no, and I take that back too because of what Spoon Fudge said. He's probably right. He says, I know him, talking about Darren Kimball, and I don't think he is getting the point across he means to. You know, he's probably right. I mean, Kurt and I just had a situation where there was some stuff said in emails that weren't meant to be said, but because it was an email, I think they came across
All right.
way more violently than they could have.
I meant to. I meant what I said. But it was.
Well, you made that point across. It was the other person, the other party.
That's fine now.
No, I'm just saying. I think I get what he's saying. He's probably right. Darren probably doesn't mean it the way that he said it. So I take back what I said, but I would love to still talk to him and get his thoughts on it. And then when you said something about me coming on the show, Spoon Fudge says, I won't be now.
He also asked, did you guys hear Fuhr's take on the enforcer in hockey on the Drop podcast? Which, Lance on the Drop podcast had Grant Fuhr on as an interview. And did you guys catch that at all?
I haven't listened to it yet, but it's in my queue.
It did it drop today?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, I was
The drop dropped today.
The drop today.
I listened to it in the car, and I caught a part of the part about the enforcer, but they talked off and on about ice gladiators a lot. So I think that they pretty much echoed the sentiment of that documentary. So, but yeah, no, and the enforcers being an important role in the game back in the day, and how that's kind of like been forced out. So I think we're all of the same opinion that we would like to see that kind of game return to where there are protection for the more skilled players on the team, since the NHL is apparently not going to, since suspensions and fines and things don't seem to be doing a whole lot necessarily. I think taking fighting out of the game is something that your diehard hockey fans, I think, unanimously say, let's bring it back. But
where appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, I when they first started, we're talking about, hockey's going to be gone in the next, or fighting's going to be gone in the next 5 years or whatever. It did bother me because I do miss even the staged fighting. I mean, there was some that were kind of, okay, let's get back to the game, but I've always enjoyed the fighting. But I'll admit, I mean, at this point, seeing what's happened to a lot of these former players in that era and just hearing the stories about the struggles they go through. I mean, even Chris Pronger, who didn't fight that much, and granted, he had other issues. He had the eye issue. But, I mean, he talked about how there was days he couldn't even get out of bed. He couldn't go into a lighted room. It had to be dark. And you got to think, I mean, he's not the only one. He's just one of the more vocal ones because he's one of the more bigger superstars that dealt with the concussion problem. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, fighting is great. And when it happens now, it's extra special because it doesn't happen anymore. But yeah, I mean, I've kind of come around on it. I think it's time to kind of see that part of the game come up very rarely.
Well, it came up tonight. First game of the season. Lars Eller got with Brad Marchand. And I mean, as far as hockey fights go, it was, not Lars Eller's not a fighter. Brad
No.
Marchand's a scrapper. So the expected outcome was pretty obvious, and we got what you expected.
Lars Eller got a couple of shots to the face
and walked away bleeding profusely from his head.
Oh, did he? I didn't see that.
He did. He did.
Okay.
So,
well, that's what you get.
So that kind of fight is, if you've got Lars Eller getting into a fight, it is a spur of the moment thing. It's
Right.
the heat of the battle. That's how hockey fighting came about. But when you got to the George Laraque era, and I love George Laraque. He, as Canadians fan, I loved him. His played himself perfectly in the movie Goon. So you want to go? Yeah, sure. Well, good luck. that was his shtick. That's how he handled himself in the NHL. But it was the stage fighting era, and I think that was the worst of it. That should have been the end of the enforcer era in the NHL, and for the most part, it was. You still have some guys in the league like Ryan Reeves. Love Ryan Reeves, energy player, brings energy to the team, but isn't speed supplanting all of that?
Yeah,
at this point?
I think Reeves is like a hybrid player. He could.
Right.
He's a really good fighter. He can play too.
Right, he's got hands.
He can skate a little bit. He's not fast, but he can skate. And he has hands. So I mean, he has a role today. So he's had a nice little career. And I'm sure he'll play for years to come. But and nowadays, if you're in the NHL as an enforcer, you do have to have skill. Aaron Knox said on the YouTube chat, you also need better equipment now because the sticks are better, so players shoot harder. And Spoon Fudge said, no, you don't need harder elbow pads and shoulder pads, which I agree with, I guess. So,
with, I don't know, not that I am an expert in this area, but with the advances in equipment, like with microfiber, with Kevlar built into it, do you need the plastic caps? Because I really think that's really what led to a lot of the concussion problems.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an unscientific observation by me, but that just the Darian Hatcher throwing elbows in front of the net with a big elbow pad that's, got a huge plastic cap on it. Isn't that going to be a problem? Do you need that?
No, I don't think anybody needs the huge plastic caps. I remember back in the day when I used to have the soft elbow pads. I still do, actually. I wear the soft ones.
Mm-hmm.
But I was elbow pad shopping, and my cousin Jeff was with me, and he bought, because he had elbow surgery, and so he bought different elbow pads to protect himself as best he could because of the surgery, which I get. But he bought these tank plastic, just massive elbow pads with a knob on the elbow,
right.
Like just in case you got somebody, it just inflicted that much more damage, which is crazy. It was almost like just some kind of weapon on the end of the elbow. And we always joked about those things, like, yeah, that could kill somebody. You just crazy. And that was available for anybody to buy. It was $30, and it was,
And it's crazy because I know that he suffered the elbow injury as a goalie, taking shots at the inside of the elbow. Right. It wasn't on the outside of the elbow. But yeah, I get it.
Spoonfudge said in the YouTube chat to look at the exchange between Kurt and the drop last week. I don't know how that applies to today's conversation. I'm not sure. I'm missing something.
I'm guessing it's something that we probably passed over. And
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem with not reading these in real time.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Okay. And let's say Bob Rakowski, broken nose is much more of a deterrent than a fine and time off. That's a good point. I mean, you get popped in the face for something you do, or your star gets taken out because of a hit that you put on someone else's star. That's more back in the day stuff. So
yeah, Bob's right. I mean, he says concussions come because of hockey more than hockey fights. I mean, he's right. But the thing that the thing that the league's trying to do is do everything they can to stop these concussions. And yeah, well, while it's honestly the lower percentage that's fighting that's causing it, the NHL is looking at it and saying, okay, there's an aspect of the game that causes concussions that we can get rid of.
Well, we've talked about this a long time.
We have. we're probably about an hour onto this subject.
Yeah, almost. Well, we have 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So let's move on.
There's an upcoming
I think we covered
season,
that.
is
So,
there not?
I think what we've come to the conclusion that Pondo's going to fight Kimball,
Yes.
and
I'm going to get my ass kicked.
New event.
it's pay-per-view. I'm sure we'll have the Drop Podcast guys bring their studio stuff and
Yeah, green
the
screen.
green
it all.
screen. Yeah, green screen it up. We'll put an 80s hockey rink backdrop with no ads on the boards behind them, and they can just go at it.
But there will be no wrestling references and no will win.
No.
As long as Jamie Rivers is the referee, that's all I ask.
And the Blues NHL podcast with Rivers and Kimball. Rivers was on. I think they released it two or 3 days ago. It was right after the hit. 2 days ago, I guess, or 3 days ago. But anyway, it was a really long conversation about this, which is this almost the same kind of thing we've done today. But it was pretty good, and it was it was really hard for Rivers to talk about the hit because, and I get it, because he's like, well, when you hit somebody, the head's down and you're trying to hit body to body and you hit the head. I mean, it's just, you hit him. I mean, it's hard to not hit him in the head, which I get. But anyway, it's a pretty good listen. So if you haven't listened to that, check it out. So less than 24 hours now from the puck drop of the St. Louis the season for the St. Louis Blues. Optimism is oozing.
Hey, wait, can I break in with some breaking news here?
Okay, Nick.
This is actual breaking news.
It's not a parody thing or anything?
No, this is a real thing. This is breaking news for Let's Go Blues Radio.
Okay.
Just got an email from Gene Ackman, creator of the Let's Go Blues song.
Yes.
He says, haven't forgotten about you and the St. Louis Blues hockey fans. That's you guys. I was on vacation for a week, and then we can't get into the studio until next Thursday night, but we should have something for you on Friday next week. Stay tuned.
Cool.
From Gene. So, for those of you wanting to hear the new Let's Go Blues song from Gene Ackman and Smash, next Friday we should have something.
Cool. Can I go ahead now?
Wait, there's more.
Wait, there's more. Optimism is oozing from the city because of the moves made this offseason by Doug Armstrong. The acquisitions of O'Reilly, Perron, Bozak, and Maroon via trades and free agency are rather exciting. Plus the injection of more youth in the lineup with Thomas, Kyrou, and Blais. So them cracking the opening lineup out of camp was kind of I think that surprised people. That I think a lot of people didn't think Thomas and Kyrou would both make it. People thought Thomas because of the situation with his age and not being able to go to the AHL and have to go back to juniors. But I think Kyrou was a very nice surprise in camp as far as like how he had progressed, and they felt he was NHL ready. So that's kind of cool. But just the other day, Yaskin and Thorburn were waived. So Yaskin, his $1.1 million cap hit was claimed by Washington, and Thorburn, his $900,000 cap hit, cleared waivers, which that's the second time he's cleared waivers in the past, 8 months or something. So
he's an in-demand hockey player.
Yeah, a $900,000 player clears waivers twice in a year. No one, and no one wants him. So that's kind of telling on a guy that you could get pretty cheap. So he doesn't. Thorburn's a great guy. Yeah, everybody says he's a great guy, great locker room guy. I don't know how they're going to use him this year. He'll be a press box guy or in wherever, San Antonio maybe. But
do you think he'll be in San Antonio? Because last year they put him on waivers and he still played for the team like 2 nights later.
Yeah, but and he had a couple of good games there too after he came back. So I guess he earned himself at least press box time. But I don't see. I mean, I guess, okay, he's in the organization and he's available if we need somebody. But he was on the ice when Sundqvist got hit.
Right.
And he wrapped up Wilson right away. And what happened? No, he didn't do anything. And Wilson skated away. So it's like, And I think it was asked in the YouTube chat earlier by somebody that, will this suspension change the way Wilson plays? Does anybody think that? No. So, I don't know. But what'd you put here in the notes there, Jeff? Newest. About Yaskin's comments.
Yeah. So Yashkin. So first of all, apparently Yashkin actually asked to be traded at the end of last season. Armstrong said he tried to do that, but was just unsuccessful. So that's one of the comments that came out. But also comments that came out earlier today. Capitals winger Dmitry Yashkin was being talked to by NHL and Capitals media. Asked about the opportunities got. He said he got opportunities with the Blues, but quote, it's kind of hard to grow if you have fourth line minutes. So basically, he's saying that the Blues only gave him fourth line minutes, which somebody tweeted out. I think it was earlier today. The opening lines for the first game of the season last year. And Yashkin was with Schwartz and Shen on the second line. So, and I think every Blues fan knows that is not the case. I was a guy, and I'll let you guys get on to your thoughts here in a second, but I was a guy who was a big believer in Yashkin. I thought this kid's going to come up, and then I thought when they drafted Barbashev, I thought those two were going to be a solid second or third line pairing together because they're like best friends. They played together in juniors. I was a big believer in him and thought that he could be a 15 to 20 goal guy given the right line. But and I'll say on the fourth line, he wasn't awful, but he was given every opportunity to succeed, and he never, ever took advantage of it. And I was fine to see him go with the roster the team has now. He's just honestly unneeded. So for him to say that is, to me, a little ridiculous, but maybe it's just his way of motivating himself.
Yeah, I mean, it's his opportunity to write his narrative, right? It's not true.
Right.
He's in the nation's capital. There's another guy that kind of does the same thing there, but I
actually think he probably got less fourth line minutes than third line minutes.
Well, at the end of his time here,
right? He did, and I thought that was actually a good fit for him.
Right? No, that's the thing. He and Patrick Berglund were so great as defensive forwards. They were in the top 10 percentile of shot suppression when it came to fancy stats. They were great at preventing chances by the other team, but everybody wanted them to score and they didn't do it.
Because Berglund would have flashes and go streaky. He'd have 4 goals in 6 games or something, and he would disappear for 35 games.
Right.
So that was like people would get their hopes up, and he would score a big goal in the playoffs, and it was just like, hey,
and you got to mid-March and you couldn't stop him, right? that was the thing. He was always great going into the playoffs, and then first game of the playoffs, he dislocates his shoulder. It happened twice. Disgusting.
Aaron Knox says, I never understood the Thorburn sighting. I felt like he was supposed to be Reeves' replacement when we didn't need a Reeves replacement. And I think that's what that was our sentiment at the time when we signed.
Spot on.
Yeah,
Spot
exactly.
on.
He was. We lost Reeves we traded Reeves, and we thought okay, and then they signed Thorburn. We're like, why?
Right.
Why? We don't need him.
Don't give it to one of the kids. And
people, you need an enforcer to play once in a while just to have in the to have that presence. He didn't fight that much last year. He really didn't.
Right. Well,
he didn't play. He was scratched for 35 games. And when he did play, I don't know how many fights he got in, but it wasn't a lot. I mean, maybe you could make an argument that he didn't have to fight because his presence was there. And so then he wasn't that well. But you can make that argument, I guess, to some degree. But actual fighting and his minutes were not a lot. And he just didn't. And he was a very poor man's Reeves. He was not a good player other than a fighter, and he was only an average fighter.
Right. He scored 1 goal down the stretch for the Blues, and we're like, oh, that could be the goal that gets the Blues in the playoffs. And we didn't in the playoffs.
Nope.
Yeah. He certainly did not contribute offensively the way Reeves would. Not that
And-
you expect an enforcer to do it, but Reeves would more occasionally than Thorburn would.
I didn't even.
And I think I made this point several times last year. If you look at his stats over his career, he always scored when the Blues played Atlanta, Winnipeg,
Yeah,
and he
that's
was
true.
on their team.
When his dad was in the audience, dad was in the crowd.
Well, that was Reeves.
Oh, yeah, right. Sorry.
But Thorburn, I remember going to a game back when Atlanta was that organization where they were based, and Thorburn scored the game-winning goal. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? And that was I don't know, 10 years ago. And what does he bring to any NHL team at this point?
He's nothing, because if he did bring something that was usable, he would have been claimed.
Right.
So-
Yaskin claimed.
I'm going to set the over/under for number of fights for Thorburn last year at 6. What's your guys' take?
Under.
He played in about 50 games ish, a little less than 50. I'm gonna say, do you know the number, Jeff?
I just saw it. Yeah, so I know it now.
I'm gonna say less.
I would have said under.
I'm gonna say less.
It's actually over.
Is it? How many?
NHL fights last year 8.
Okay.
They're not bad, but I mean,
once every 5-6 games.
which is fine. I mean, we talked about this in exhaustion already, that the enforcer role is gone. But I mean, if he's not fighting, he's not doing anything else for your club. So
No.
there's absolutely no point. And I don't mean to bash the guy. I mean, you said it, Kurt. Everything I've heard, great guy, wonderful teammate. People love him. But sorry, he's just not needed on an NHL roster in 2018.
And I think it's more of a case now of teams just needing overall toughness. It's not so much, the presence of an enforcer. If you have an enforcer that can play, more power to you. But a guy like Maroon, who is a big, tough guy who is willing to drop the gloves and can fight, but he can really play. That's more. You need a few of those guys,
Right.
As opposed to a guy that's just on the team to fight. You just can't waste a roster spot on a guy who is a one-dimensional player like that, as far as fighting goes. If you're one-dimensional as far as scoring, that's different, because I think you can get out there and help your team win. But if you're one-dimensional as far as fighting and you get 4 minutes of ice time a game, it's like, what are you doing?
Right. And I had the conversation today with a guy at work. So Thorburn didn't make the team. Who's going to protect him when the other team throws their goon out there? Well, Bortuzzo for one, Maroon for the other.
Edmondson.
Right. Yeah. Why do you need that? The other team, what other team's going to have a goon?
There's not many.
Right.
There's a handful of guys in the league that are labeled as goons, and typically the goons aren't going to be playing against your top line anyway. So I mean, fourth line.
More breaking news: the Blackhawks have just signed Stu Grimson.
Actually,
Oh, that is a Nick comment.
that is because
There it is.
the Reaper is now a nationally. I think he's a national broadcaster. I was impressed with him when I saw him in the playoffs last year.
Really?
Yeah.
He's a smart guy. Yeah, he went to Yale or Princeton, right?
That was Peros. Peros was
I'm pretty sure it was Grimson too.
Yeah.
I'll
What
look that up.
price?
So we got the expected lines, the forwards this season was tweeted out today. Maroon, O'Reilly, and Tarasenko for the top line. Schwartz, Shen, and Kyrou for line number 2. Steen, Bozak, and Perron third line, and fourth line is Barbashev, Thomas, and Blay. So Soshnikov skated today at the end of practice. FYI.
Did he get a concussion?
Yeah, shot hit the post, came back, ricocheted off of his helmet, and he's out 6 to 8 weeks.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually the case.
Yeah, I know, right? So,
You know what it is? Sorry, Stu Grimson went to law school. That's what it was.
okay.
All right. Sorry.
He's a smart guy. I actually enjoyed his presentation when he was I forget what game it was that I was watching, but he was good.
George Peros is a smart guy,
Right.
He's
He was I think Princeton.
which is so funny because the typical thought of goons is a dumb knuckle dragging goons, but there's some pretty smart goons.
Yeah.
So Army said that the Blues had expectations for Blay to push for a spot, and for Thomas to get a 9-game tryout. Kyrou was the player that opened their eyes, and which we touched on earlier. And I assume the 9-game tryout is still the deal with Thomas. I didn't think about that when he first been a team. I'm like, I hope not. I hope it's more. Seems like unneeded
But
pressure.
he's the guy that can't go to. He can't go to the AHL. So what are you going to do?
Back to juniors,
right? You don't want to do that. Just keep him.
I mean, if he's awful,
right?
If he's awful in the first 9 games, I get it. Okay,
right.
Well, let's go back and reset in juniors, and play for 20 games and then come back or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I don't.
Right. He's got nothing to prove there.
Right.
He's got nothing to prove going to the World Juniors this year. Just let him here.
Yeah.
I am optimistic that 3 guys made it. We waived Yaskin and Thorburn. They're not around anymore.
Well, Thorburn's still in the organization, but
they waived him. But
yeah.
but they're giving 3 young guys the opportunity
on
the offensive end, right? Which
is fantastic.
Right. That is a different mindset. You go back and listen to our previous shows. How many times did I bitch about veteran bias? I don't know how many times I brought that up. Even, it was terrible during the Hitchcock era. I hated that it was a holdover into the Yo era. I'm moderately excited that the Blues are giving these 3 guys a chance and putting Kyrou on the second line.
Right. Well, and Kyrou being on the second line, it gives him a real nice shot early in his career.
Right.
To see what he can do with Shannon Schwartz.
Right.
I mean, now I know that lines get switched up mid-game and lines for game 2 could be completely fucking different. But because
you could see Steen lining up there.
Yeah, I know. And Kyrou on the 4th liner. And I could see, Kyrou had a bad first game, press box this game, puts Steen second line. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh fuck, we're regressing into last year's model.
Right.
But I would hope that they would give these guys ample opportunity,
right,
even after a bad game or a rough game or whatever. I think it's a long season. I would hate to see them kind of fall back into, because there were comments made by Army as far as the 4th line goes about we're going to try and go faster, more skilled, younger on the 4th line. But if that doesn't work out, we reserve the right to go back to more traditional methods on the 4th line. And I was like, oh, man, don't even bring that up. I'm all excited about moving away from the
Thorburn
slow,
era,
no chance at offense, 4th line.
Right. And that was the one thing. If we didn't waive Dmitry Yaskin, keeping him on the 4th line, he was an effective 4th line player because he would go into the corners, throw his body around. Was, again, great at shot suppression. But
yeah, I know, and I think some folks on social media were wanting to keep him around Yaskin, with the injuries to Fabry and then the question marks. We don't know how exactly well Thomas and Kyrou are going to play and Blay are going to play. So I mean, granted, a couple of those guys may lay an egg early and need more seasoning or whatever, and so yeah, if that's the case, then I guess you could plug in Yaskin in the 4th line. That'd be fine, I guess. Not ideal, but it would be a nice stopgap until figure something else out. But that's not an option now. So I get that mindset that folks might want to have that. But I'm curious and excited to see how Tarasenko gels with O'Reilly, because I'd imagine they give it a lot longer look than, say, the 4th line with Thomas and Blay. So Blay. So.
I'm excited for that, and like you said, Kurt, just to kind of throw this wrench in there, you said Kyrou could be in the press box and on a different line by the 2nd game. He could be on a 3rd line, 4th line by the 3rd shift for all we know. So I hope that doesn't happen, because I know we've talked. You guys agree that Mike Yeo seems to be a 2.0 of Hitchcock, and hopefully that mindset has changed with the outcome that we saw last year. So we'll see. But yeah, and your comment about Tarasenko, that's going to be interesting. If you guys read it, I don't know if how many people here subscribe to The Athletic. Jeremy Rutherford had a great article where he interviewed Ryan O'Reilly and asked him about what he thinks about playing with Tarasenko. And if you read any of the writers or anybody who was posting on Twitter the first day of camp, O'Reilly and Tarasenko did not look good together. Apparently they looked awful, out of sync. Passes were off, shots were off, and there's a lot of concern. But O'Reilly was just like, "Hey, listen, we've never played together before, but I'm the type of player that can play well with him. I'm a two-way player that can get up and down the ice, and that's the kind of guy Tarasenko needs." Paraphrased, obviously, but yeah, I'm excited for that too. And Kurt, I know you went to the same game I did, the preseason game. Maroon, O'Reilly, and Tarasenko, I thought looked pretty good together. Maroon was pitching in on the walls really well. O'Reilly was like he said, playing a good two-way game, and Tarasenko looked to be getting more open. Now, granted, that was a preseason game, but he was finding himself open for shots. He was finding himself open in the hash marks. I mean, it looked like a completely different line than we saw Tarasenko play on last year. So it should be interesting to see how these guys come out of the gate tomorrow. But I know we mentioned Kyrou possibly, and then the fourth line possibly breaking up pretty quickly. I think you're going to see the Maroon, O'Reilly, Tarasenko line get every shot to succeed.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's why I said that I think that they'll have a lot more opportunity together than say the fourth line would, or any kids would, like Kyrou on the second line. So that'll be interesting, and I hope that's not the case. I hope they do give them but I can totally see if we only have like 6 shots in the first period tomorrow, and the second line doesn't look too good. I can totally see like, well, let's switch stuff up. Let's bump Kyrou down to the third line, and we'll move up, Perron or whatever. And it's like, okay,
it'll be Steen. he has a letter on his jersey.
Right.
It'll be Steen.
Okay, fair enough.
No, I just not that I'm upset that he's no longer part of the organization, but Tage Thompson, I really thought, you go back to the games last year when he first got the call up, one mistake, he was on the bench for 2 periods. You cannot manage talented rookies that way. And if they do that with Kyrou, it's going to be a disaster.
That's a great point. Because that's history with Yo and young talent,
right?
And you
have to give them grace to be able to make mistakes and learn from them. But if you staple them to the bench and make them feel shitty about, I made one mistake, I have to be perfect, they're not going to develop.
I'm hoping with the roster turnover from last season, with 6 new forwards and the influx of the young kids, I'm hoping the mindset is there that, okay, we've got a number of kids in the lineup. This is where we're going this season. We have to give this a shot. I'm hoping that's the mindset, where last season that wasn't the mindset we had. So I mean, even though Blay and Thompson played some, not a lot, but some, there were other options to use, I guess. So hopefully this year, and to be honest, with waiving Yaskin and Fabry hurt, there's not a ton of options to like plug in instead of, Kyrou or somebody. If you want to bench him, there's not a ton of options out there that are better. So I'm hoping, after 10 games, if he needs to sit a couple of games or whatever, I get it. That's fine. But this whole like 1 period, 1 mistake, or, a bad change, or a bad pass, or a bad assignment, whatever, and he gets benched for, a whole period, that's bullshit.
Right. You go back. Just real quick.
I'll go ahead.
You go back to the end of last year, the veterans were gassed at the end of the year because I think the younger guys didn't get enough playing time. Maybe this is more on the defense, but Petro, his stretch run was terrible. He was gassed. He couldn't help the team over the line to get us into the playoffs last year. You've got to use them. You've got to rely on them. You can't staple their asses to the bench.
Yeah, all I was going to say to Kurt's point too is that you don't have a lot of options to plug and play with because you already just lost Yashkin and you got some injuries. They have 9 defensemen on the roster. Now, listen, I know they can call people up, and we'll get to talking about the defense here in a minute. But, if it's a back-to-back situation to start the season, you're not going to have the opportunity to just say, okay, this guy's sitting, so we're going to swap them out. No, you can't do that unless you want to play 7th defenseman. So, they're going to have to give these guys a shot, and my God, I hope they do. I mean, it's about time. We've been hearing about these rookies for years, and it's time for
feels like
this management group to step up and have these guys play.
So as far as Fabry goes, Fabry's worked his Armstrong is quoted saying Robbie has worked his tail off and his knee is as strong as ever, but he is compensating different areas, whether it's the back, the groin, the hip. So what we've got to do now is get him in hockey shape, and that's going to take a while.
Kind of literally worked his tail off.
Right. And whatever. I mean, hopefully it is what he says it is, and the team will learn to, and he'll learn to play again and trust the knee, so he isn't stressing other parts of his body to compensate and put less stress on the knee. So, I mean, like I think he was also quoted as saying, someone else tweeted out that whether it's October 4th, 5th, 4th, 6th, or November, whatever, they'll take their time with him and make sure he's ready to go. So, which is fine. I mean, I don't. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I'd love to have a 100% Fabry ready to go and contributing, because that's 20 plus goals you're hoping for.
Right.
So.
And I think that Kairu's got his spot. And when Fabry's ready to come back, Kairu's going to probably be the guy that they send to the A because they can. Yeah,
possibly. It depends on who's playing how and everything too.
Right.
That could be
right.
That could be a few weeks from now.
And other injuries.
Right.
That's
true. Blay too.
The things you can't predict.
Right. So the defense, we got these pairings here, and they're either I don't know who they're tweeted out by. Bomeister, Pietrangelo, Dunn, Pareko, Butler, Schmaltz, Mikola, and Bortuzzo I guess it was in practice. Gunnarsson's on long-term IR out until November with his ACL and his shoulder, I believe. And Edmondson is not likely to play Thursday. So,
okay. So before we get into the Bortuzzo, obviously he'll be suspended for game 1, so we're not going to see him. But and we'll get to Strickland. Andy Strickland had a comment on what we'll see third pairing of. But I just want to point out, and again, I know Kurt, you were at the same preseason game as me. When they announced the starting lineup as Bomeister, Pietrangelo, my wife, who does not really pay that close attention to the Blues, she just looks at me and says, "They're really going to do that again?" And I'm like, "Hey, preach it to the choir, honey." I mean,
well, as long as
again with the Bomeister, Pietrangelo, it is clear Pietrangelo is a much better defenseman when he has a capable defenseman on his pairing with him. Right now, Jay Bomeister is a third pairing defenseman. That comment that I just made, I think I said 28 times last year.
Yep.
I mean, you guys have said it too. I'm fine with him being on the roster. That's fine. You're paying him a bunch of money. He's probably still capable of being an NHL defenseman. And I'm sure coming back from this injury, he's going to be better than he was last year.
He actually had a good camp.
Yeah, and he had a good camp. Having said that, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, he was not a top pairing defenseman. So at this point, why is he still a top pairing defenseman? And you're talking about, and again,
well,
we're talking about a lot of rookies making the roster. McCullough's on the roster, Schmaltz. Why not put one of those guys with the veteran Bomeister and then let Dunn or Schmaltz or whoever try them out on the top pairing with one of the best defensemen in the league and see how they handle it?
I would imagine that Gunnarsson's not till November, but Edmondson is hopefully only out for a game or two. So once he returns and once Bortuzzo comes back, I would imagine Bowmeister would not be on the top pairing anymore. That has to be the case.
Edmondson.
We'll see.
Yeah, right. So I want. I mean,
It's got to be Edmondson, right? It
has to be. Has to be. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, he that's not. I mean, if Edmondson's in the lineup and Bowmeister is paired with Pietrangelo, this team deserves what they get with Bowmeister late in the season, because he won't last with those minutes. If you're going to play Bowmeister this season, you got to limit his minutes. He's just. I don't think that's if the smart way to go is to put him on a third pairing, play him less minutes per game, and maybe he'll last the whole season. Against the team, lesser lines. No, I was just saying he's not playing against top lines either, so it should be less strenuous.
And
less minutes.
He's a good skater. You let him play against second, third lines, he's going to be fine. I mean, he's not getting blown away with Crosby's speed when he's out there against players like that. You know, I mean, play him against the lesser lines, and I guarantee he'll give you good minutes. But when you're constantly showing him out there 25, 27 minutes a game, and he's playing top lines, he's going to be exposed.
Yep. I have no problem with him playing the first line in the first game. If this is just like, okay, until Edmondson gets back, we'll play him one game, that's fine. But I hope this is not a recurring thing. That's a problem.
I mean, am I just crazy and being alarmed by this? I know there's injuries, and I know that there's a suspension to Bortuzzo, but seeing that in game one, am I crazy in thinking that I'm a little alarmed that we could be seeing that again?
Would you want to see Bowmeister and Butler on the third line?
Butler is the only other one I would not put on that top line.
So Butler was the guy that I was going to bring up in this conversation, because it seems to be the Mike Yeo needs to be able to say, I need a veteran presence in the locker room, is why Jake Wallman's in San Antonio and Chris Butler's here. I mean, I was really hoping that Wallman would make the opening night roster. I understand we've got the crazy things with the injury, but Chris Butler,
I know
we're playing Winnipeg tomorrow night, and I was at the game in February when Chris Butler got his first call up last year, and Winnipeg made him look dumb. He also made a great pass to Matthew Perreault in front of the Blues goal, and Perreault scored. Why Chris Butler?
I will always
come on, man.
I will always support him because he's a St. Louis boy. I will always support him.
Oh, that's
I wish him the best in San Antonio. I wish him the best in San Antonio, not in St. Louis.
Right. His dad was the assistant coach at CBC when I was there. So I'm not going to denigrate him. He's a much better hockey player. He made the NHL. I'm sitting in a basement talking hockey,
Well, whatever.
Yeah. But
I'm with you, Bill.
Why not Jake Wallman? And that's the other part of my background. Jake Wallman's a Providence guy. I want to see him here. Eric Foley's a Providence guy. Get over the concussion. Make it here.
And Aaron Knox said on the YouTube chat, I mean, at this rate, shouldn't Bowmeister be the last player besides maybe Butler to be on the top pairing? Isn't that what? Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yes, you beat us to the punch.
Yeah.
I'm with you. And now, Kurt, you put this in the notes, so I'm sure you're going to go over it. But Strickland's comment going into this game is Bortuzzo's facing a 1-game suspension. You'll likely see a third pair of McCullough and Butler with Schmaltz, or McCullough or Butler with Schmaltz. Very short-term situation for the Blues.
Yep.
I know that 31 NHL coaches do not want to have a pairing of rookies and young guys together, but if your option is Chris Butler or anyone else who's on your NHL roster, go with anyone else. I would love to see a excited, jubilant McCullough out there with Schmaltz for game one over Chris Butler, which again, I'm hoping you have a great AHL career, Butler, but man, not with the Blues. You are not a Blues player.
Well, at this point, I mean, Butler's getting close to retirement regardless of the league he's playing in. So to keep rolling him out when, you know, the NHL game probably passed him by when he came back to St. Louis from Calgary. I'm just not comfortable. Give me Nico Mikkola.
Goalies, Allen and Johnson, obviously. So I'm trying to picture what I would have said last season at the end of the season if you had told me that our starting goaltenders was going to be Allen and Johnson to start the season this year. I would have been concerned, but we'll see how it goes. Allen had a good camp. He only played in 2 games.
Right.
So, but it was 9.3 something save percentage, and so he looked good in camp. But again, it's just camp. So
the game I saw him in against Dallas, I thought he looked really good. He was square to the shooter. He didn't come out too far. He no. Oh yes. What do you Bill? Bill's telling me I'm wrong.
I'm sorry.
Right?
No, they're sorry. They flashed the Liverpool preview up on.
Oh, you were doing that to me.
Sorry.
Ignore that, everyone else. So in Kurt's setup, the camera for them is right above the TV in there, right?
Yep.
Right.
So when Bill is like giving a thumbs up and looking at the TV, I think he's looking at me and giving me a thumbs up. But anyway, no, I thought Allen looked really good, and but again, that was September. Let's see what we're talking about in January and February.
Yep.
No, go back to the Sunday game. Jake Allen looked pretty good in the first period, and then you know, they put Chad Johnson in, and he gives up 4 goals over 2 periods. I'm worried.
Yeah,
I want Jake Allen to succeed. His track record doesn't suggest that he will. We don't have a lot of room for error. Chad Johnson he'll be good for a game or 2, but he's not going to be a long-term replacement like we've had.
that's what concerns me. I mean, every time I think about this team this season, and not to harp on Allen too much, we've done plenty of that.
Right.
But I every time I think about this team this season, I get excited. I'm like, oh yeah, the roster that 6 new forwards and some kids in the lineup that we're excited to see, and O'Reilly and Tarasenko, see how that works, and Kyrie made the team, and that's all fantastic, exciting stuff. And then I think about our goaltending, and I'm like, oh man, I'm like, because it's such a question mark. And I know there are Allen fans out there that have confidence in him. I'm not one of them. I'm hoping like hell, but I don't have it. The faith that he's going to do it. So, but we'll see.
Right.
You guys.
There have been times in his career he's shown that he can be an above average NHL.
Pretty
goalie.
much every goalie in the NHL you can say that about. That's why they're there, because they've had some games that's why they're still there. Right. Because they've had some games where they've been really good.
Give me a whole season of convincing.
Yeah, be fairly consistent all season long. You know, put up top 10 numbers in goal, and then we'll talk. Okay, there, fine, good.
Right.
You're a top 10 goalie, perfect.
Right. But until then, I'm gonna lose sleep over you, buddy.
Yeah. Well, he has not earned the trust that he needs people to have in him. So hopefully he can earn that this season. But it's going to take a while too. I mean, it's going to take through February. I mean, if he's playing consistently well,
yes, through
February, it's like, okay, he's made it through the slump area.
It's January and February that have killed his last 3 seasons.
Yeah, well, and he wasn't good before that. He was just worse in those months.
Right.
So,
well, the team dried up.
The team dried up too. Yeah, and which comes to a comment about the power play. Let's see what it's.
Hang on.
Yeah. What?
So we got 2 things. One's a question from Bob I'm going to give it to Bill, but we'll get to that in a minute. I want to ask you guys something first. Let's say Allen and Johnson are healthy 100% all season, no problems. Do we still see Ville Husso at any point?
No.
Healthy, healthy, no problems, meaning what? Healthy.
Like they're not like Jake Allen doesn't go down with a season-ending injury, and Husso has to come up.
No,
No,
I don't think
no.
so. I think they'll get him starts in the minors. I
But I'm
think
saying like if Allen, like the Elliott situation a couple years ago where he just bombed and they have to give him even Allen, they had to give him a mental break. Do you think we see that this year?
No.
Do you think we see Huso if Allen goes down with a mental issue?
Mental break, yes.
No, they make a trade. Unless Billy
He's got to be tearing it up.
unless it happens after January 1, like if you're talking between October and December, no.
Oh, I'm saying
They will bring somebody else in before they bring Billy Huso up and give him the opportunity. If you're talking about we get into January, February, they'll probably give Huso a look, but they'll also be looking at the trade market.
It might depend on how Huso's playing too.
Right.
If he's playing, if he's tearing it up, he's playing really well. I think that's easier to make a case for him coming up.
Right. And I think solely in terms of Billy Huso, this year they are looking at, we have control of our minor league situation. We can give him as many games as we want for the first time in his development
Right.
as a
That's so
professional. Right. And that's the thing. They're going to use this opportunity that they should have had all along to right a wrong from previous seasons when maybe he should get a shot this year.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's not going to happen. I just don't see it happening, Jeff.
Well, then my other question is, why not Bennington?
Because his numbers.
Oh, he didn't have like one.
Because
He had
math.
one start in the preseason. He was terrible.
Yes.
Oh,
Right.
awful. But still, why not Bennington? No. So the question that I wanted to relay to Bill that Bob Rakowski on the YouTube chat asked, why does it take so long for NHL goalies to develop?
I don't know. No, it's goaltending is goalies are different, right? So when was the last time you saw so Matt Murray, right? You're thinking of the guy that came in and got it right away. The Matt Murrays, the Patrick Roys of the world are the exception to the rule. You've got to mature. You've got to be able to handle the mental lag, or the mental load that comes with the knowing that you're the guy and just being comfortable in your own skin takes a long time.
Well, Grant Fuhr did say, I listened to the Drop podcast today, and Grant Fuhr in the interview did say that goaltending is 70% mental.
Yeah.
So
it is
because if you're at about the NHL level, you have the skill, you have the talent. Goalies that are able to make it in the NHL have the mentality, the superior mentality to make it. So
Right.
that probably takes developing.
Obviously, I didn't have that.
We were talking about you today at work, actually, about your
Oh.
goaltending prowess. Yeah.
my prowess.
Yes.
Was this Cahokia Men's League?
I do not remember if it was Koki Men's League, CBC, or what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, goaltending to me, it was all about confidence. And when I got onto a good role and felt confident, it was one bad goal that could derail me. And obviously I'm not going to think, when I was a young kid, yeah, I thought I was going to make the NHL, but once I got to the realistic point of life, knew I wasn't going to get there. It still was that way. I could be supremely confident and have a fluke goal just completely derail my confidence. And it was always that way. I will 100% agree with that statement. But I was going to ask, was the Grant Fuhr quote, "Cocaine's a hell of a drug"?
No, but they did talk about the drug abuse, so substance abuse. Spoon Fudge asked in the YouTube chat, as far as referring to Allen, he is not paid like a top 10 goalie. I realize that, which is a good thing because he's not. But I think I said I want him to be, and it'd be nice if he was top 10 goalie. What did I say exactly? I want him. I think the Blues need Allen. Actually, the Blues need Allen to be an average goalie. I think this year, average is a good point to shoot for
Right.
him, because he was really bad last year. He was in the bottom of the barrel almost.
Right.
So I think if he were to be average, I think that's a fantastic improvement over last season. Now, top 10 is maybe asking too much. It'd be nice. I'm not gonna lie. I think if Allen's a top 10 goalie, I think we win the division this year. So
Absolutely.
so so maybe that's shooting for the moon with Allen, but why the hell not? Stop acting that way, sir. I assume that's about Allen. He said also said that I've heard you in the past say Jake Allen is paid like a top goalie, and he isn't. I don't think I said he's paid like a top goalie.
You must be confusing us with another podcast.
Well, I think maybe that's in reference to the fact that I said that his contract is one that it's hard to trade because he makes like $4 million plus or something like that. And for a guy who had the season he did and the issues that he does, that's kind of a contract that's not desirable for other teams to make. Maybe that's what he's referring to. I'm not sure. And who brought up Murray? Let's see. Spoonfudge said Murray's GAA was over 3. Why the hell are you using him as an example?
Because he came in and won a Stanley Cup in
There
his
you go.
rookie year.
That's what I was going to say.
Same as Patrick Waugh. Patrick Waugh's goals against average, but this gets into my point, my ongoing point that you can't compare different eras.
Right.
But no, Matt Murray came in and won a Stanley Cup as a rookie. Just nobody knew who he was, came in, took over for Flower, did it.
Yeah.
And that was where I was going with that. Matt Murray last year gave the Pittsburgh Penguins cause for concern. Pittsburgh is, if you look at the Metropolitan Division this year, Columbus is in most projections going to finish higher than points wise. Why? Goaltending. Bobrovsky is better than Murray.
That's
right?
why that computer model on The Athletic that talked about the Blues, the only reason they had the Blues fighting for a playoff spot was because of goaltending. Right. Everything else was pretty good. Otherwise, so.
Right. And that is the question mark on this team.
And it's a fair one. It's a
right.
fair one. It's
Absolutely.
It's an absolutely fair question. And power play is a fair question too, because of Yo's history with the power play being awful. And the way the offense tanked last year. Granted, there's 6 new forwards on the team this year, so you really can't say, well, this group has to perform better than last season. It's not the same group; it's a different group. So you can't get a whole lot worse than they did after December 12th or whatever it was, 7th. So they were pretty bad, like almost worse than the league, I think it was. So hopefully this group is better than that.
Right.
So
and I guess we'll see if they are going to force Alexander Steen to handle the puck at the point during the second power play unit this year. I think that's your telltale sign.
Well, we have the projected power play units on here. What a segue was that? Perfect. Power play units. Well, actually, the last season. Okay, this roster compared to last season's roster, JR tweeted out earlier today. So our top line last year coming into the season, coming out of camp, was Saboka, Stasny, Tarasenko. Second line was Schwartz, Shen, and Yaskin. There was the Yaskin on the second line. And third line was Payarvi, Sundqvist, and Thompson.
Right. There are only 4 returning players in our top 12 forwards.
And the fourth line was Upshaw, Brodzak, and Thorburn.
Right. The four returning players, Schwartz, Shen, Tarasenko, and Barbashev. Well, I guess Steen.
Barbashev wasn't on the opening day lineup last year.
So it's Steen. It's got to be Steen.
Yeah. Steen wasn't either. Was Steen hurt last year?
Yeah, that's right.
Steen was hurt. Yeah, he was hurt. That's right. Yeah. First, 8-10 games, whatever it was. So it's vastly different. It's just neat to see the comparison, how the forwards have kind of turned over. So
right.
That was an issue last year. A substantial issue was the production from the forward group. So that's great to see that something was actually addressed, that a huge need was at least attempted significantly to be addressed.
And not just the forwards in general, but the center ice position. We now have 2 premier face-off guys in the league.
Spoonfudge said that this team cannot have injuries. I think it's safe for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
We're still pretty deep as far as like the starters go.
Yeah.
But I mean, once
we
have injuries now. I mean,
right.
Sundqvist is hurt and Fabry's hurt, and not that Sundqvist is anything.
The defense is where.
Well, the defense is hurt too. I mean, we got. I mean, we've got room for an injury or two. Once Fabry comes back, if somebody gets hurt, we've got a guy we can plug in. I think we have depth wise, we're better. We have a better, more solid group that's going to make that's made this the roster out of camp. So there's that going for us. And he's Spoonfudge also says that. Yeah.
I was going to say with the depth for injuries, I think last year they had some decent depth to get through injuries. The thing that needed to change was the philosophy. Berglund's hurt, or Steen's hurt, so let's put in Thorburn. I mean, if you can put in the right type of player on the right line, then I think they're going to be fine. I mean, you got to figure once Fabry comes back, one of those guys is going to be, whether it's Barbashev or Blay or Kyrou, who's going to sit out in his spot. Well, put one of those guys right back in when somebody gets hurt. Don't call up a Chris Butler type and say, we got to have the veteran. No, get the right type of player in there and they'll be fine.
Right.
Spoonfudge says Steen sucks. Steen gives about 30% effort most games. Steen does not suck. And I don't see the 30% effort he's talking about. I think Steen does not play up to his contract. I like Steen. I just don't. He doesn't. I mean, he's overpaid big time, but he'll be. I think he's on third line, so I think that's a good role for him.
And I'm gonna go out on. I can't say it's going out on a limb, but I'm gonna say right now that Alexander Steen is going to be the contract whipping boy of the team this season.
Oh, for sure.
The guy that he earned his contract. I was at the game. They announced his contract extension. It was 4 years ago now. Like, this is because it was a 5-6 year extension. I was at the game. He had 5 points against Montreal, 4 or 5 points against Montreal, lit Carey Price up, and he looked it, but it kind of seemed like since then he's stagnated. He got paid and he's stagnated. He's had his injuries.
There are things I like about Steen. I mean,
when he's on the point and he shoots, great. But when he passes,
he's not a great passer. And it's more secondary stuff. It's almost like his and I'm gonna sound, if I come off stupid, that's fine. He plays feisty, and I like his attitude on the eye. He almost to the point of borderline taking bad penalty. Actually, he's around the net. He doesn't take any crap. He'll push, he'll shove, he'll cross check. He gets his nose dirty a little bit in that sense. So I appreciate the effort in that regard. I really think that it'd be nice if he could rebound a little bit with a little more production this year in the offensive zone. I think he's defensively, I think he's fine. But I think it'd be nice if he could chip in some more offensively, and maybe he will be on a third line, not paired up against better defense. So, we'll see. And Spoonfooter says he is no longer a good two-way player. We'll see.
Yeah. I think if he stays on the third line, that's the best place for him.
I do too. He's an overpaid third liner. You can't pay that much for a third line player, but it is what it is.
Right. We paid him the money. Yeah. We can't take it back.
And I agree. So you can't. I think you have to with Steen, and I don't know if this is going to come off as but you can't. His contract is inflated. It's all we know that. So you have to think of him as a third line player. How is he for a third line player? Is he a good third line player? Okay, that's Steen, and he's doing fine. Now, if you expect $7 million, was he making $6 million? What's his contract? 6 something. So
yeah.
If you expect that kind of production out of him, you're not going to get it.
Steen as the power play quarterback, that better be.
I don't like.
That that better be a thing of the past.
Well, according to the power play lines, we got Maroon, Tarasenko, O'Reilly, Bozak, Parayko, with occasionally Dunn on the point, and then power play 2 was Schwartz, Shen, Steen, Perron, Pietrangelo. So assuming those stick for a while, you won't see Steen on the power play, which is good. I'd like to see them trying. I don't like Pietrangelo on the power play that much. I'd rather see. I know Dunn is younger, and the power play is like a privilege kind of thing to get the more veteran players. But I'd love to see Dunn instead of Pietrangelo on that second unit. Pietrangelo to me has an issue with holding pucks in at the point and not making the best decision as far as shooting goes at the point. A little too often for me. I think Dunn is far more offensively talented.
Right.
More creative offensively. I think that when your power play was as bad as it was last year, I think that's something you should at least try.
Well,
Yeah, I don't mind Pietrangelo honestly on the second power play unit. I think by comparison you're 100% correct. But I don't think he's awful at the point.
Oh,
I would think
you're talking about
the better. No, I'm talking about Pietrangelo.
Oh, I didn't say it was awful. I said go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say I'm fine with Pietrangelo out there, and maybe this is just because I've never been a fan of the 4 forwards on the power play, but I would think the better option there would be to take Perron, put him on the wing, and then put Dunn at the point with Pietrangelo. I'd like to see that, but again, I think they're pretty much dead set on that 4 forwards on the power play.
Yeah, I mean, when you have Dunn and Parayko and Pietrangelo, 3 guys that can play the power play, I don't see what the problem is putting 2 defensemen out there for the power play. I think you got guys who are comfortable
in the second unit.
Yeah, especially the second unit. I think you guys that are comfortable playing at the point anyway. So I always get nervous, and you do run the risk of having a forward at the point where if the puck comes back the other way, you got a forward playing D on a 2-on-1 maybe. So that's that issue.
Maybe you see O'Reilly, who could pop back on that point because he's pretty reliable back there. But
he's a shorthanded goal guy, but everything I've read about him, he's not that great defensively.
Really,
that's what I heard.
Know.
But he's got to be the guy taking the faceoffs. So you can't expect him to be running the point taking the faceoffs, right?
Yeah, that's true.
You got Bozak for faceoffs too.
Yeah, but not on the power play.
I think I'd want you got to be your best power play guy or face-off guy on the power play,
and that's fine. And because I think we're all in agreement, though, it's the fact that I mean you can't the 4 forwards thing. It's burned the Blues many times. When you have a bad power play, who just cannot keep the puck in the zone, there's no point in having 4 forwards on your power play unit.
Right?
Maybe we'll see a different power play this year, but as judging what we've seen in Mike Yeo era, it's not a good idea to have 4 forwards out there.
Right, and just wait till David Perron's the guy out there. And he tries to dangle, somebody gets poke checked, and there's a breakaway the other way. Just wait for Blues Twitter to explode.
No, here's what Perron does. Perron's at the point, dangles, gets it poked away, takes a tripping penalty in the offensive zone to avoid the breakaway.
Touche. That is the more likely scenario.
Oh man. So yeah, and let's see. Aaron Knox said on YouTube, Steen had 46 points last year and around 50 the year before. He makes $5.75 million, which is too much for him, but he's still a fine player. That's kind of where I am. I like Steen as a 3rd-line player. He's not a top-line guy like he was at times in the past. Or a 2nd-line guy. I'm hoping he doesn't regress any farther because I don't know what his age is. If it was 30, what is he? 34 something? 30?
I think that's right.
30. So I'm hoping his age isn't catching up with him because you see guys drop off.
We have these computer things.
I know, right?
Right.
I have tabs open, windows open. I can actually pull it up right here. Let's see.
Hockey.
Steen is 33. That was a year off. Close. There you go. And Aaron Knox says he's 34. You're wrong. He's 33.
I like how you're so quick to yell at our audience. You're wrong.
I'm getting yelled at for Steen and a little bit of Allen. So, and Spoonfudge says good night. So good night to you, sir.
I do like that he says petroleum is average on the power play. I hate autocorrect.
Let's see. Okay. So real quick, predictions this year as far as like how the Blues will fare. I know we talked about the model last week.
Right. And the updated model, we talked about this in the
Right.
chat today. The Blues jettisoning Yaskin and Thorburn, putting
Adding Kyrou and
in
Blay
there ups them to an even coin flip to make the playoffs. 50% shot to make the playoffs. And again, it's all Jake Allen.
Yeah, it really just comes down to how much faith you have in Allen. It really
Right.
does. I mean, if you're, I think if well, I'm not gonna. From me personally, I'll say that my faith in Allen is no secret that is ruined.
Right.
It's not as high as I'd like it to be. You don't. I mean, but based on what's happened the past couple of years, so I'm hoping that I think they'll make the playoffs. And I think that I'm hoping, I'm an optimistic guy in general. I'm hoping Allen, he can't play a whole lot worse than last year.
Right.
Really. I mean, as far as like his talent level, he needs to be better, and he will be better. He's got to be. So I think they make the playoffs. So I'm thinking third in the division, maybe.
Yeah, that's, I think, best case scenario for this team this year, realistically, is, well, I mean, best case scenario obviously is going to be first in the division, but the realistic scenario, I agree with you, third in the division.
Behind Nashville and Winnipeg.
Nashville and Winnipeg. So Jeff, what do you got?
Well,
yeah.
First of all, I was going to ask you guys, do you have it in that order? Nashville, Winnipeg, St. Louis?
Could be Winnipeg, Nashville, St. Louis.
Okay. Just want to point out last year, I have them written down. Phil, you had Minnesota, Nashville, Dallas as your 1, 2, and 3. Kurt, you had Minnesota, Dallas, Chicago.
We were all too high on Dallas.
You guys ready for mine? Ready for this one?
Yeah, Blues.
St. Louis, Chicago, and Dallas.
We were all way too high on Dallas.
All three teams did not make
a lot of
the
people
playoffs.
were. I'm not to say that, but I just that was they snowed people.
Yeah.
And then also we all had the same 7th place team as well.
Colorado.
Interesting.
But that didn't work out too well.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So my prediction is basically the exact same as yours. I'm not going out on a limb this year. Not going to say the Blues are going to take first or 7th. I do see them taking third. I think it's just again. I know a lot of people are making the case for the Metropolitan, but I think the Central is still the strongest division in hockey. Especially with how Winnipeg and Nashville have just become the powerhouses that they are. I think if Dallas and Minnesota were in any other division, they would be challenging for division lead. But in this division, there's no way. There's too many tough games. So yeah, I'm going to put them in third. And I do think that there's a possibility they fall into one of the wild card positions. But I just think this team, the changes they've made, I do see them getting off to a slower start, especially than last year, just because it's going to take a while for these guys to get used to each other and Yo to find the lines that he likes. But I do see them, and especially if Jake Allen can pull his head out of his ass this year, I do think that they'll be having a pretty good end of the season, which will hopefully bring them some momentum going into the playoffs.
And I hate doing predictions. I especially before the season starts, because really, how many times, like our predictions last year were for shit. And a lot of people had Dallas doing well last year and they didn't do anything. So I've always said that, after 20 games or so, then you kind of see where teams are, and who the surprises are, and how it's going to play out. But then again, last year the Blues were like world beaters after 20 games, and they fell off after that. So,
Kurt, you my favorite lines from last season I think it was like 2 days before the Detroit game when the wheels started to fall off of the Blues, where you said, we need to stop asking, when is this team going to fall back down to reality? And we just need to realize that this is who this team is. And then right after that.
That was my 20-ish game mark. It was like 20 or 25 games. I was like, okay, I mean, at some point, you have to like shift gears and say, well, it's been like we're 25 games into the season. That's substantial.
Right.
They're like tied with Tampa Bay for the league lead in points, and they're tearing it up offensively. Okay, 25 games in, this is who this team is.
Right.
And then they fell apart right afterwards.
He agreed with you 100%.
I'm gonna stand. That's not something you see every day. So I'm gonna stand by that kind of thing. I'd really like to see this team where they fare after 20 games, just to see.
Nah.
Okay, and then I mean it's oh well, yeah, you can do that because you can see how good teams are. Well, yeah, I mean, because half the time, teams like Vegas last year, my God, nobody saw that coming.
Get me to the All-Star break this year, please.
There's a belief that I've read, and it comes out every year around Thanksgiving, that the teams that are in the playoff race by Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, are usually the same teams that make the playoffs, maybe different order, but it's the same teams that make the playoffs. Of course, the one exception last year was the St. Louis Blues.
Yep. We are not going to open up the show for listeners this evening. We are running way late.
Wait, what time is it?
I don't want to look. But before we close out the show, we'll do the Blues social media fails. And then, so this is on Twitter, and all of these revolve around the Wilson suspension, which we talked about at length earlier. And I don't think we didn't talk about either of these tweets. Or these 3 tweets. 2 are from Darren Kimball. 2 are from Darren Kimball, and 1 is from another user. So you want to split them up, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, sure. I'll take the first one.
All right, go ahead.
This is from Darren Kimball, who is an excellent gentleman, by the way, and anyone should never say anything negative about him.
He's a sharp-dressed man. Who everyone's crazy about.
Yeah. He says it was a clean hit, and yes, we fought for less than that. I think Scott Stevens was one of the best D-men of his era, and he hit like that all the time, and they were clean hits. I don't think we need to go into detail why this tweet is ridiculous, because we talked about this in length earlier, but Scott Stevens is not playing in the NHL in 2018 for a reason.
Yeah, and he starts it off by saying that the Wilson hit was a clean hit. And I'm like, it's one thing to say, okay, I disagree with the length of the suspension, but to say it was a clean hit and go off the board comment to say it was a clean hit is just ridiculous. So I'll take the second one. So in response to a Twitter user who said that he was going to watch baseball instead of hockey tonight because of the Wilson suspension, Darren Kimball said, I just hope there's no beanball thrown. It might be a 20-game suspension. Which,
come on, Darren.
Well, it just, and that, it's very similar to the tweet he posted earlier, that we talked about earlier, about how it's just like totally just making, like, he just doesn't get it as far as and I guess this reflects on his previous tweet that you just read about him thinking it was a clean hit. So it's making light of what happened and thinking it's not a big deal. There should be no suspension. It's a clean hit. Again, a different era, different science. We're smarter now. It's just get with the program.
Yeah. Bill, you want to take the next one?
Another one?
Yeah, sure. So this is Jack Parma at Jack Parma. Sunquist, we're missing a letter here.
Yeah.
Has a responsibility to see who's on the ice when he's out there. If he does that, comma, and sees Wilson, comma, good use of comma there, then no way he should have skated into the middle with his head down. Take away headshots, comma, I agree, comma, but the brunt of this hit was to the body, ... And I'm a hashtag STL Blues fan. So, no.
Did any of that hit get to the body?
No,
after the head snap back.
this is victim blaming.
Yeah, which
This is
which was a lot of Twitter today.
Right. And yeah, I mean,
we talked about it a lot.
So many people lament the pussification of hockey. You're talking about people's lives. Sundqvist's career could have ended with a hit like that. I'm not going to blame him for a predator out there. Not, and
And you know what? Let's face it.
It's almost you're at a loss for words with some of this stuff. It's like, can you really be that obtuse about what's going on? You're just oblivious to what's happening in the NHL the last 10 years. It's just, I don't get it.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
You're living in 1987.
Right.
It's just nuts.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it too. I know that we have talked in exhaustion about this, but one more point I want to make. Part of this is because it's a reputation thing. If that's Dmitry Yashkin flying across the middle and making that hit, and maybe you say, okay, he didn't realize what he was doing. He didn't realize Sundqvist wasn't looking at him. But this is the definition of a repeat offender in Tom Wilson. He knows what he's doing. He's done this before, and he hasn't learned. So
16 games ago. 16 games ago, he did this. He did a headshot.
Big suspension for this. He absolutely needs it.
And it's funny as I think Rivers on their podcast said, Jamie Rivers said he expected 7 games, and this was a couple days ago, right after it happened.
That's about what I expected. 7
games. I thought, and that's why I tweeted out. I said over under is 8 for me. I was like, well, let's see. What do you guys say? Some people said 6. Some people said suspension. Ha ha ha. Whatever, which is ridiculous. Some said 15. Some said 30. It was all over the board. But I was thinking, I was hoping for 10 to 12, and thinking, well, the NHL will be like 8. But
right, I think that number like 8 feels like,
it feels like an NHL
going
number.
into it, right?
Yeah.
The realistic number you could expect.
Yeah,
20 games. I was surprised by it, but not just because I'm a Blues fan. I'm happy about it. I think it is. If you want to send a message, you have to hit them hard.
And speaking of being a Blues fan about this, it doesn't really affect the Blues. So that's interesting. So on one hand, it's like, well, you want retribution, you want justice for what happened to one of your players. However, what if Washington would, the Blues fans probably want Wilson in the lineup if they play Nashville or Winnipeg in the first 20 games of the season? So that's the other side of the coin, where it's like, oh, well, it's an Eastern Conference team. I don't think we play them in the first 20 games, do we? Or do we?
No.
So if they play Nashville, Winnipeg, or a division rival, it'd be, maybe they won't Wilson in the lineup for that game. So I get it. I all in all, yes, I agree with you that you want justice for this, and I think that's as a person who wants justice, I don't think you can be unhappy with the result of the suspension.
So long as you agree with us.
Right. Oh, anything else you got, Jeff?
Oh, let's check the
last social media fail was Darren Kimmel doesn't know how to use Twitter. Because
we talked about that earlier.
Of the constant retweeting and not replying. Right. Okay. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Bob Rakowski asked us for the Price is Right fail sounder, which you provided him. So
I did.
And O'Fallon Brewery says, thanks, Jeff. Cheers for me giving them the beer of the episode. So thank you, O'Fallon Brewery.
Thank you for brewing beer.
And if you'd like to sponsor Let's Go Blues Radio, you can contact us at radio@letsgoblues.com.
At radio@letsgoblues.com.
Is that it?
Radio, just tweet us.
Just tweet us.
Friend us and DM us. That's fine. We'll get that.
Chances are Ponders told you the wrong email address.
Yeah.
Several times.
Just don't email us. How about that?
Oh, our next show. I didn't look at the schedule even. Next week sometime, possibly Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever the Blues don't play. We'll see if we can do a show.
Quick, vamp.
Anyhow,
What are you doing for the game tomorrow night? It's a home opener.
it's a home opener.
Are you going to be there?
I am scheduled to be at the home opener.
Are
Yes,
you really?
Yes. So, and I'm scheduled to be at the 5K on Saturday,
I am not.
which you are not. No.
I am scheduled to be not at the 5K.
Ponder, are you going to the 5K on Saturday?
Oh yeah, I'll be there. You want to meet up before and run together?
Who's
or you just
5K?
want to
Oh.
run into each other?
We can meet up there. I gotta get my packet and everything.
I think I'm getting mine tomorrow.
I chose to pick mine up at the race day, which is I never do, but
Right.
it's a 5K.
In other ways, requires you to drive to De Pere,
Yeah, I didn't want to drive to the pair.
which is like 50 miles away.
It's like
from
50
here.
miles away from here. Right. I don't want to do that. It's like 2-hour drive, isn't it?
Right.
Oh,
Screw that noise.
The show just bundled up nicely.
We're vamping.
De Pere is like a hop, skip, and a jump for me. So I will be going out there tomorrow to get that.
Hmm.
Yeah, if any of you are planning and being at the 5K, send us a tweet, Facebook message, whatever. We'd love to meet up with you. But hey, if you guys would like to talk about what show to do next week, looks like they play Thursday and Saturday, but then they don't play again until Thursday of the next week. So if you guys want to do a show, let's say Tuesday or Wednesday, I think that'd probably be the best.
Wednesday is probably going to be best.
Wednesday is always better for me.
Okay, let's plan on Wednesday. Wednesday, October 10th.
Wednesday, October 10th. It has just been decided.
Which means it will be podcasted on the morning/afternoon of the 11th.
Yes, it'll be available then. If you can't watch it live on the 10th. 9 p.m. ish. 9:15, 9:20.
10:15.
Yeah, no.
Midnight.
That's the goal for the end of the show.
We're pushing it.
I know,
We're
right?
Pushing it tonight, eh?
Jeez. So that'll do it for this week's episode of Let's Go Blues Radio. For Jeff Ponder and Bill Day, I'm Kurt Price. That will conclude this week's broadcast of Let's Go Blues Radio. Until next time, everyone, let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.
The Chiefs are at home tonight against Sport at the War Memorial at 8. Good seats are still available.
A look at sports.
I think that went very well.
Thank you for listening to Let's Go Blues Radio. Now take off, hosers.
Well, there's 90 minutes of your life you'll never get back. Sorry.
St. Louis Blues, St. Louis Blues. Have you heard the news about our St. Louis Blues? They've only just begun, they're on their way to #1. Now there's no more blues for our St. Louis Blues.